Now welcome in Red Bull Salzburg manager Jesse Marsch. Jesse, interesting times to say the least. Checking in with you. Just first off, how are you and the family doing?
We're good. So my daughter stayed in Leipzig last year, and she's finishing her last year in high school. So we went and picked her up probably 5 weeks ago now, when they started to create all the regulations here in Austria and Germany. And then, it's obviously been a strange time for all of us, but for our family, it's been really nice to have time together. And our kids would probably say too much time, but for my wife and I, it's been really nice. And then, trying to stay busy and make sure that when we come out of this and start playing again, that our team is totally prepared.
How do you do that, Jesse? Honestly, like how do you not only stay in touch with your staff, but also the players and keep them in shape? I mean, everyone's asking me this, and I'm deflecting. I'm asking all of you that are doing this. How do you do this?
Yeah, I think everybody's done something a little different, and you have to kind of come to terms with what your rules are in your league, and then come up with some innovative ways. Our fitness coach has done a really good job. He's given them programs. We've given them equipment where they can have almost like a home gym. So they have gym days, they have running days. Here you can still go out and run, but you have to do it with social distancing. So our guys have found places to do that effectively and stay fit. Today, I did a Zoom yoga session with them. I got killed. I used to be good at, when I played, I used to do yoga. I used to be good at yoga, and I just got hammered. But it was, I think, something different for the guys. We have a soccer bot that we're going to start using next week, which is it's like an enclosed, almost virtual reality machine that they can do interactive things with. And so we can do individual workouts with that. So we're going to do that starting next week. So, we've tried to be creative and even do some video virtual workouts together with the fitness coach and whatnot. We've had video meetings with some players. We've tried to use all the different technology to make sure that we're staying on top of things, and that when we start playing, we're totally ready to go.
Obviously, the biggest news in the sports world, around the world in that matter, is that the Bundesliga teams are now training. Now, they're not training as teams. They're training in groups of 3, 4, 5. But more so, the plans to play games May 2nd, May 3rd, as early as possible. Is that feasible? Because you're living this.
Germany and Austria have handled this really well and been very conservative, and had early reactions based on what was happening in Italy. So that, along with the medical systems and the hospital system that they have in both countries, has meant that it's been relatively quiet compared to some other countries. I believe that everybody still knows that we're still in the thick of things, and it's a little early to start to really see the light at the end of the tunnel. However, the idea that we can still control some training in certain ways and respect social distancing. I mean, we've already submitted something to the Austrian government about ideas that we have on how we can do things with small groups and still make sure that we're respecting the rules and regulations pertaining to social distancing. And then the idea that, we can kind of accelerate training as we move along here, and hopefully by the end of May be thinking about playing. In Germany, they're more aggressive. And in Germany, there's a lot more at hand with what happens in the league, and certainly even legal repercussions. So I've spoken to people at Leipzig. I know that they're pushing and very aggressive in some of the ideas they have. They've even talked about testing the entire 18-man roster 2 hours, 3 hours before the game, and then deciding if players can play or not. The percentages right now, I think they say, are 70% accurate. So they need to up it so that they can get it closer to 100. But that's another way that they can maybe control some of the outcomes of what happens. But I also read today that the Bundesliga is thinking that it'll be possibly all of 2020, even next year, without fans in the stadium.
Yeah, that's been the biggest topic of conversation here in the United States, Jesse, whether it's the NFL, the NBA, Major League Baseball, and Major League Soccer. When will fans get back into it? Now, I don't think any of us really know that. Now, I want to go before the pandemic a little bit, Jesse, because I think one of the biggest storylines in sports, I know it took a huge notice here in the United States, was you becoming the first American to ever coach in Champions League. What was it like walking out of the tunnel hearing that anthem?
Yeah, I mean, it's awesome. The first game we had here in Salzburg was also so much about the club. They had for 14 years come just short from qualifying for Champions League. So, and the stadium was full an hour before the game, and they were so excited and ready for it. And then, there was almost this quiet at kickoff because they were almost ready for disappointment again. Erling Haaland scores 2 minutes in the game. We wound up having a fantastic match, up 5-1 at half. We wound up winning 6-2. In the end, of course, it's a unique experience and something very special. But, I've been in this business long enough, and when you grow up in it, it's what it feels like now, whether it was as a player or as a coach, being as assistant coach at the World Cup, playing with the national team against some big time players and clubs, and then doing it, with the Red Bulls. We played against Chelsea, we played against Benfica, we played against big clubs. And so it wasn't like another game, but my mind was totally focused on trying to make sure that our team was fully prepared to get the results and to perform well. So in the end, you can look back on it a little bit more now and think about it and enjoy it. And then, also analyze what was good, what we could have done better. It's a big experience, no doubt. And I think it will make me better in the long run, both personally and professionally.
I think that's one of your strongest qualities, is the ability to put perspective around it. And listen, when you're in the thick of it, it's hard to reflect on something. But I think when you're older and you're talking to your grandkids, I think it's going to be interesting to say I was the first American to coach in Champions League. Now, I do know it's going to make you stronger and try to be better. Now, part of that moment of your Champions League debut, you said it, Erling Haaland. Describe him as a player, because for those of us on the outside, he's been a little bit of a revelation, Jesse, in the sense that he just scores goals no matter if he plays 18 minutes or 90 minutes.
Yeah. So first, his physical qualities, okay? His speed, his power, his from like 0 to 60, like he can get to top speed in like one step. His strength, his technical ability, his size, all of these things for me right away put him in the upper echelon of players, or potential to be some of the best players in the world. But what makes Erling so special is his mentality. To start with, he was in the U20 World Cup. He's had the 9 goals in one game. Mm-hmm. And then we gave every one of our players who had international obligations at least 3 weeks off before they were supposed to come with us. Erling had 6 days, and he said, no, I want to come straight to camp. Erling came to Salzburg last winter. He played 1 game in the entire winter and spring. So he had a lot of disappointment of sitting on the bench. He was a little bit injured, but he was really eager to get himself going and to start to prove himself, especially knowing that we were going to Champions League. So right away, I knew that this kid had ambition and had drive. And then, early on in the first training sessions, you could see that we had something special, that his explosiveness, his competitiveness in every training session. And then he was often the first guy at training and the last one to leave. Yep. This kind of dedication. He was the guy that was always asking for video, what he could do better, what things should we work on. He would stay after practice and work. There were days where I had to tell him, Erling, go home and rest. Mm-hmm. So, he's fearless, he's competitive, he's got a drive to get better. His father played in England, and professionally, so he knows the business a bit. So he's equipped with so many qualities that make him, I think, very different, very special. And along with the ability, just the pure talent, I think he's going to be fun to watch in the coming years. That's for sure.
Yeah, it doesn't look like the moment's too big for him. However, Jesse, are you surprised at all how quickly he had success at Dortmund?
No.
Okay.
We were playing a preseason game because we have a long winter pause here, and then on the phone, after our game, I started seeing 1 goal, 2 goals, 3 goals.
Yeah.
And right away, I was, we talked as a staff here that we'd be more surprised if Erling didn't have immediate success. And it was interesting that they didn't play Erling right from the start.
Agreed.
In the lineup, but they figured it out over time. And we know Erling well enough, whether it's in training or games or whatever, if you put him around the goal and you give him opportunities, he's smart, he's clever, he's explosive, he's going to find ways to score goals. We saw it over and over, day in and day out. So, the interesting thing with Dortmund is Erling is best in transition moments. I mean, he can play a lot of different types of football, but when he can really get out and run and play in transition and find space and run behind that's when he's most dangerous. And so Dortmund doesn't always play like that. He doesn't have as many touches in games. He's not as much involved in build-up. He has to kind of wait for moments around the goal. Jadon Sancho is a little bit hard to play with and figure out, obviously a big talent. But watching Erling, he's had some really good moments, but I still think we're only scratching the surface with his potential.
Well, you just said it best. I think if he begins to play a part in the build-up, playing with his back to goal at times, I think this kid's something special, especially in transition, Jesse. He's been remarkable to watch. Another one of your former players, Minamino, made the big move to Liverpool. How quickly do you think he plays himself into that first team, or should I say regular action with Jurgen Klopp in that group?
Well, Taki's another interesting one. So we were following him in New York, and we liked him a lot and thought that maybe there'd be potential for him to come to New York and play in MLS. He was still young. He didn't always play under the other coaches that he had played for here. But when I came, I knew right away that he was going to be a big part of what we were going to be about. He's smart. He's very clever. He's not pure explosive, right? But he understands football. He understands how to make final plays. He understands tactics. And so, what you have in Liverpool is so many incredibly talented and experienced players that play ahead of the ball that it might take a little time for Taki to really establish himself with that group. But I think over time, they're going to figure out more and more and more that he can play almost any of the front six positions for Liverpool, that because he's so smart and clever, that he'll figure things out, that he'll get better and better as he goes. I've heard that in training, he's done really well and they've been really impressed, but in games, it hasn't quite come together for him. So it might take a little bit of time, but knowing Taki, he's the kind of guy that has so much drive and will find a way to get better every day. And it'll only be a matter of time before he's a bigger part of what they're doing there.
Jesse, over the last, I'd say, month or so, we've done a little bit of reflecting on Major League Soccer in its first 25 years. You've been a huge part of the league, both as a player and as a coach. Now, looking back on that, what's been the biggest surprise for you over the first 25 years of MLS?
Well, I think, we all hoped in 1996 that eventually the league would get to where it is now. And of course, beyond. I mean, everyone in America, this is the way we think. We want to be the best. But in the year 2000, in the year 2001, in the year 2002, it wasn't so clear, that the league was going to have legs. And I think the acceleration probably from 2007 till now has been incredible. And it's, for me, it centers around the soccer-specific stadiums. That has really, I think, gathered momentum. The fan experience now is so much bigger than it was when we all played in, the Horseshoe.
Yeah.
Or, you could go down the list. We used to joke all the time when we played in Kansas City, and there were in that big stadium, Arrowhead Stadium. 500 people there, and Zach Thornton and I would walk out during the anthem every time. Get your resume together. So now you see the progress and the hype. Like when you watch the LA series now. I mean, I got part of the New York series when it first started. I mean, incredible. And those are some of the best games around the world. So they're garnering more and more attention. I think people in Europe are paying more and more attention to what's going on back there. I get a lot of questions about the league and about players there. So, if we can continue to make this incremental growth, and I think that's been key, is that we haven't been too impatient, right? Or that we've taken our time, that we've taken the right steps, and we've put ourselves in position to succeed. Certainly Don Garber deserves a lot of credit for that. The owners deserve a lot of credit for that. The players and the CBAs, I think, have reflected that well. So, in the end, I think that the partnership with everybody involved to really help the sport grow has been fantastic.
I couldn't agree more. The infrastructure has had a huge part of the growth. I will say, though, Jesse, so is the technical side of things. And I think a big part of it, and it's not because you're talking to me on Zoom right now, it's the fact that right around when you became coach of the New York Red Bulls, it changed. And I don't know why. I think it's more because owners started to hire soccer people and they started to look at the soccer side of things. Beginning of 2020, Jesse, I noticed a trend, and I went on ESPN in the opening game, and I said foreign coaches coming into this league are being a little bit more successful and a little bit more ambitious. You're now a foreign coach over there. Am I wrong on that? That Major League Soccer now has shown the ability to hire the right foreign coach?
Well, what I do like, and I think that certainly Red Bull in 2015 was a reflection of this, but you started to see more teams that had a style of play and coaches that had a philosophy. And that made things more interesting. It made things more sophisticated on the field. I think it helped players grow within systems, So, I mean, we had a lot of fun in playing against Greg Berhalter in Columbus. We had fun playing against Vieira in New York City. Against Tata Martino down in Atlanta. And so, there were different matchups that Greg Vanny certainly in Toronto. Yeah. But when coaches start to have a way, then I think it adds to the quality of the games. And certainly then some of these foreign coaches, I know Almeida from playing against him in Chivas, and he's a Bielsa guy, and they have a very distinct way of playing football, and it becomes very interesting for me. And that's part of, being in Europe here. You see the history of clubs, you see the style of play from different coaches in different countries, and certainly playing in Champions League and Europa League makes it so interesting. So I hope that fans and people are starting to enjoy that part of it. Not just the excitement of goals and the environments at games, but actually the interesting storylines and matchups of what's happening on the pitch. And I think we're making that kind of progress.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. The fact that there is an identity with each team. Oftentimes when you and I were playing back in MLS, we were all the same team. It just who wanted it more, who was more competitive, who was good on that right day. Now there's an identity and it's more unique. So now fans can I think identify with what these teams are trying to become. Jesse, that word identity is a very important buzzword with U.S. soccer right now. And I've been asked since 2017, what's the biggest problem? And here's my issue. There's a lack of accountability within the group, and there's a lack of true leadership within U.S. soccer above the first team, both men and women. I'm talking about in the infrastructure, there's no accountability, there's no leadership. Am I wrong?
Well, I mean, I had a soundbite on that with Grant Wall where I talked about that, how we handled the women's national team. For me, that was really difficult to watch. And I'm just such a believer in equality. And so I understand the variables of what U.S. soccer has to deal with at certain moments. But come on, we have to have leaders. We have to have people that understand sensitivity, that understand how to lead people, bring people together, to unite. I felt this I've said this multiple times.
Yes, right? You have.
When I worked with Bob Bradley and the national team in 2010 and 2011, I felt the divisiveness in U.S. soccer, whether it was MLS or youth ranks, academies, or youth national teams. It was incredible to work for the U.S. national team and not feel 100% support from everybody involved, especially on the inside. And so this is important for me. And this comes down to leadership for me, right? So when you're bringing up these talking points, I think, I often also say that I'm a fan of U.S. soccer. Right. And part of being a fan is being critical, but it's for sure being supportive. And I want to see the right kind of people involved. I want to see good coaches. I want to see good leaders, and I want to see direction. So I feel like Greg has a way, right? So that is a really good thing. So Greg Berhalter is trying to implement his style of football, and he's trying to, I think, impress his personality on the young players. And he's worked with a lot of different players in a really wide group. So hopefully over time it'll narrow and he'll be clearer and clearer, and that group will come together more and more. But that's a good example of things moving in the right direction. And we need this kind of, I think, unity and togetherness in every aspect of U.S. soccer.
The synergy from top to bottom in U.S. soccer. You lived it. I've seen it from the outside. You never experienced it as a player. It's disheartening, to say the least, that there is a lack of synergy from top to bottom. And quite honestly, if it's more inclusive than exclusive, Jesse, there's going to be real growth. Before I let you go, though, I need to ask you, and I'm going to put you on the spot. What is your favorite one? You don't get two. What's your favorite memory of your time in Major League Soccer, and why?
Yeah, I mean, it's easy. It's 1998 final.
Yep.
That's a long time ago. Maybe people don't remember, but it was, I had the chance to play against my old team, which is, for any professional player, this is always really special, right? When you get the chance to play against your old team. And then to do it in the final, to walk away with, the first 3 MLS Cups, and to actually play this time.
Yeah.
So, that was really special for me. And then, as a coach, I think it would be in 2015 in Chicago when we won the Supporters Shield, and the way that group played that year. But the last game had a lot of anxiety, and to come out on top in the end was really good, really great.
2 great moments. Jesse, I appreciate you taking the time. Obviously, different times, and I hope we get to see you back on the field sooner rather than later. Yeah, I always say shorter with you, but I'm shorter than you, so that's besides the point. Good seeing you, pal.
You too, buddy, and don't be a stranger. I always appreciate you having me on, so this is great. Thanks, buddy.
Super.
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN+.